What convinced you that Islam is 100% the truth?
For me, the big thing was looking into the authenticity of the text. That was something that was important to me from the beginning. And so I was very concerned about, okay, is this actually what the Creator said? Is this actually what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was given? I knew the changes that happened in the Bible. I knew that different things were added and subtracted and reinterpreted over the hundreds of years. Was it the same in Islam? What about the Hadith? How certain can we be that the Hadith are actually things that the Prophet ﷺ said himself? But I got to a point quickly when I looked into those things, I was like, wow, yes, they take authenticity really, really seriously. I think you can even just tell the difference in attitude. If you try to talk about authenticity with a Christian, it's like they look at you like you're speaking French. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not even on their radar about what authenticity would look like. How would we know? How would we be able to tell this book is actually preserved and this book isn't? They'll just say, well, you can't have such high standards. You know, if you have standards like that, you'll never accept anything. And we'll say, no, actually we'll accept the Quran because of the Quran, we actually know the names of the narrators that pass down the riwayat or the qira'at of the Quran. We can go to the manuscript evidence. There's over 50 manuscripts that can be carbon dated back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that represent over 97% of the Quran that we have today. So there's actually a ton of evidence.
How did you take your Shahada and how did you feel?
So when I graduated, I was praying 5 times a day. I was fasting. I didn't take my Shahada. I didn't understand that there was a Shahada to take. I didn't know what the Shahada was. I understood myself as a Muslim. So the Moroccan professor that first introduced me to Islam, she called me up out of the blue one day. She said, Tom, you're a Muslim, right? I said, well, I pray 5 times a day and I'm doing this thing. I said, yeah. She's like, have you taken your Shahada? I said, what's that? She said, she was giving at a conference in Philadelphia. She said, come over to one of the masjids here and take your Shahada. I said, okay. So we all got in the car, me and my wife, and at that point we had given birth. We had our first son, and we went over to the masjid in Philadelphia and went down to a basement, and I said the Shahada for the first time. The feeling was kind of mixed because this was not a place that I had any connection to before. I kind of flew in blind. And knowing what I know now as an Imam, I can criticize the way that they did it because they took me down to a basement alone with one person. I didn't know who he was, what his name was. Was he the Imam? I don't think he was. And he kind of just said a few general things about Islam, and then I took the Shahada, and that was it. I never heard from that person again. I didn't exchange numbers, nothing. So I had absolutely I was just on my own. Person got the Shahada, point in the bag, and that's it. The other thing that was problematic was, I think the attitude that a lot of people have towards new Muslims and their families. So as I mentioned, my wife was not yet a Muslim, and upstairs, while I was down in the basement taking my Shahada, there was someone talking to my wife, and basically another woman who was also a convert, but was kind of scaring my wife a little bit. So she asked my wife if she was ready to convert, and my wife said, no, I'm not. I'm still thinking about it. I'm interested, but I'm not really ready yet. And then, without knowing anything about our situation, this woman says to my wife, well, you know that every touch between you two is haram now. And I'm in the basement, poor guy. I come upstairs, and then my wife is angry. I'm like, what happened, right? And this is something that set us back a lot when it came to trying to encourage her to grow in the faith. Imagine that somebody tells you that, welcome to the religion. Sorry, you guys are done. It's a very, very difficult thing. So it wasn't a very happy, necessarily, Shahada experience, to be honest. I settled into a Muslim community back in New Jersey where my parents lived, and that's where I kind of made my first connection with a Muslim community, and I started attending regularly.